Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. We want to thank each of you for attending our webinar this afternoon. Your presence here is really important to play an important role in the event. Today, we have the opportunity to share with you valuable insight and content about this project. Here with me, there is Silvia from the Lake District. She will present the main aim of their project, and Daniela Grisoni from Pronto Guide, that with her presentation will dive deeper into the details. And I think I can leave the word to Silvia, and she will start with the presentation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Marcella. I just share my slides. Just a moment. Can you see them?
Yes.
Not yet.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So, hi, everybody, and a warm welcome to warm virtual welcome to the region of Lake Maggiore. First of all, a huge thank you to all of you, tour operators connected here now, for your involvement, for your attention, first of all, and for your future involvement and support in promoting our destination abroad. My name is Silvia, and I work for the local tourism board, Distretto Turistico dei Laghi, which is the organizer of this webinar Soul Gardens today, with the precious support of our partners, Viral Passport and Daniela Grisoni. I just show you here I just make an introduction about our territory and about the activity of promotion of our local tourism board before starting with the explanation of our villas and gardens by Daniela. With over 4.7 million visitors a year, 78% foreigner. These are the data regarding 2023, analyzed by the Piedmont Regional Tourism Observatory last year. So the most updated data we have at the moment. The region of Lake Maggiore confirms its importance in the region Piedmont. We can say that Lake Maggiore is, internationally speaking, the most relevant destination in Piedmont. Well, when I describe my territory, I always say green and blue landscapes, so different and yet so close, because we have three lakes, Lake Maggiore, Lake Orta, Lake Mergozzo, which are surrounded by gentle slopes and the Alps all around at an extremely short distance. From famous Lake Maggiore with the Borromeo Islands, the typical Italian dolce vita, to the clear waters of the small Lake Mergozzo, the little brother of Lake Maggiore, and the romantic scenery of Lake Orta, with the picturesque island of San Giulio. They are jewels of nature, art, and history, which make these one of the most appreciated holiday destinations in the area of northern Italian lakes. All around the Ossola valleys, which offer all mountain lovers, wide forests, high peaks, wonderful nature parks, for those seeking the most unspoiled environments. And the secret, I think, is here, because in just over an hour from the lake shores with these Mediterranean allure, you can reach the foot of the second highest mountain in the Alps, Mount Rosa. Between our lakes and the Alps, the holiday can evolve into a really authentic and personal experience. The scenic variety of our destination allows all the visitors on the lakes to enjoy amazing experiences that are increasingly on the mind of the contemporary tourist. That means a range of slow activities between the lakes and the Alps that involve all the senses, including culture, food and wine, outdoor and wellness. So now let me give you one experience proposal, perhaps the most iconic one in the region of Lake Maggiore, that is Soul Gardens. Spring, summer, and fall time on the lakes in the gardens of feelings. And so the gaze turns to historic residences and very important botanical gardens. They are the jewel in the crown of the region, but also to small worlds full of poetry. Centuries-old parks, small villas, and UNESCO World Heritage Sites. It's a tour among the villas and gardens of Lake Maggiore, Lake Orta, and the Ossola Alps, which means diving into an experience of slow, sustainable, and conscious tourism. Places where different, very important elements they merge together. So you have architecture, art, and history on one hand, and botany, nature, and scenic landscapes on the other. And this word, with all these, including all these elements in our villas and gardens, bring a new scent to the holiday. Let's say it's a holiday of intense fragrance, thanks to the presence of typical flowers of Lake Maggiore too, which are camellias, rhododendrons, and azaleas, which are very important for the offer of our villas and gardens, particularly in spring. Garden tourism today is a quite complete experience, is a mind and soul experience. It takes on an intimate dimension, ideal for relaxing and also fully understanding the cultural and naturalistic heritages of the Piedmontese lakes, which is a unicum in the cultural and natural heritage of Piemonte. And here we are. So that's an invitation to discover our villas and gardens today with our explanations, with this very important moment we have organized. But also, if you want for further information, by having a view at our Soul Gardens guide. It's a new guide we have realized. You can find it by clicking here on this slide in the material you will receive afterwards with Vira Passport, and also having a look at our website, the official tourism portal of the destination, distrettolaghi.it, sorry. I now leave the floor to our local expert of villas and gardens, Daniela Grisoni, for the story of 22 splendid realities in our area related to the theme of garden tourism, where your visitors can enjoy a modern green experience. I just want to thank you, all of you once again, for attending, and please contact our local tourism board at the contacts you can see here in case of any need you may have in the next future, and we'll be providing more and more information to let your clients live their own Lago Maggiore experience. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Silvia. Daniela,
Okay.
you ready? Okay, let's go.
Okay, let's go. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Marcella, and thank you, Silvia, for introducing me. Let me show my screen, and thank you, all of you, all the participants to this webinar. Can you see my whole screen?
Yes, but in
Is
all
it
of...
okay?
Okay.
Okay, is that okay? Can you see the full screen?
No, it's
No?
not at the full screen at the moment.
Okay, let me see if I have to click something.
Down at the right, yes.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
here it is.
Yeah.
All right, now it's better. Okay, thank you for your help.
Sorry, now it's full screen. You can go.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Silvia, for introducing me as a local expert on villas and gardens. I'm a local guide. I've been a local guide for more than 25 years now. And in the last years, I've actually specialized in garden tourism. And with the help of other colleagues, and we share the same passion for gardens and for villas and for castles, all these gems that we have in our area. So we've specialized and we've found a net of even also private properties that had never opened to visitors and which are now included in this project and little by little are becoming more popular. And that's, as Silvia said, a parallel offer to the most renowned destinations that were already very well known by tour operators and tour organizers in the area. So I hope that this afternoon you will discover something new, in fact, and refresh a little bit something that you had already known before. In this first slide, you will see two pictures. One is a corner of one of the most important and most beautiful gardens that we have on Lake Maggiore. That is the garden of Isola Madre. We'll talk about it later. And the other one, you see a building. It's a very it's a peculiar building. It's a chapel. It's a chapel of a place that is called Sacro Monte, the Sacred Mountain. Sacred Mountain are UNESCO sites, and later during the webinar, if you don't know what a Sacro Monte is, you will be able to know something more about these places, which are really considered as soul destinations for feeding our souls, in fact. So let's start with the geography and the geographical context on our region. As you can see from these pictures, we are in the north of Italy. Italy is divided into regions, and the Piedmont is one of our regions, and it's the orange region that you see highlighted here. And the land, the territory that is called Distretto dei Laghi, as Silvia said, the local tourist board, is located in the very north of Piedmont. You will see later that we are surrounded by Switzerland. We are at the foothills of the Alps, in fact. This area is special for the presence of three lakes. One big lake that is called Lake Maggiore, and two smaller lakes, Lake Orta and Lake Mergozzo, and the Ossola Valley at the foothills of the Alps. The area is divided between two provinces, the province of Verbania with 74 municipalities and the part of the province of Novara with 20 municipalities. As I said, we are at the border with Switzerland, so maybe the slide is a little faded, but I'm trying to show you where Lake Maggiore is. It's very long. Later we'll see a zoom on this lake, very long and narrow lake. The border cuts the lake here in the northern part. So we have one border here that is the Italian-speaking Switzerland with Locarno, and another border here on the Alps that is the so-called Simplon Pass. Okay, so Switzerland is all around. Verbania is the name of the largest city of the area, about 35,000 inhabitants. We are close to the Milan-Malpensa airport and the city of Milan, and not far from the other second airport of Milan, which is called Linate. So again, the north of Italy, and you can also see the city of Torino here. Torino Caselle is another option. that we have to fly into Piedmont. Not far from Venice, as you can see, and not far from Genoa on the Italian Riviera, and very close to Switzerland. So for a full experience between mountains, the sea, and the lakes. In the north of Italy, there are other lakes which all have the same origin at the foot of the Alps. They're called, they have a glacial origin. The most famous of the lakes in the north of Italy is Como Lake, that has become so popular everywhere in the world after some VIPs chose the Lake of Como for their mansions, for their villas. But Lake Maggiore now is just taking the place of Lake Como. Here is Lake Maggiore next to it. Lake Maggiore is bigger than Lake Como, as you can see. While the largest lake in Italy is the one that you see on the right of your screen. It's called Lake Garda Lake, that is closer to Venice. In any case, let's focus on our region around Lake Maggiore, and this small lake that you see on the left of it is called Lake Orta, and a tiny blue spot here that is Mergozzo Lake. So this is the area that we focus today. Lake Maggiore is the main character, is the leading destination of our region. As I said, it's a glacial lake. It's about 40 miles long, and it has a surface of 212 square kilometers. That is about 80 square miles. And the area, the section of the lake that is the most popular is the section that I'm circling here between the city of Verbania, Baveno, and Stresa. It's the so-called Borromeo's Bay. You will see later why. But the rest of the lake is just as charming. It's surrounded by hills, which is the typical landscape of a glacial lake. A lot of vegetation compared or unlike Switzerland, the Swiss part of the lake is much more built than the Italian part of the lake. This is something that foreign visitors appreciate. When they pass the border, they really appreciate our lush vegetation. They're surrounded by woods. And the scenery is really attractive. So it's a privileged environment, as we are trying to tell you. We feel proud, we feel lucky. We were talking about it earlier before starting this webinar. We are really privileged to be based in this area. Both me and Silvia were born here. We are very local. And why moving? It's a blessing to live here. We have also, we have told you about the Alps, but in fact, we have a very special microclimate here because the Alps protect these lakes against the frost. And in this way, the large mass of water of Lake Maggiore is able to mitigate the temperature in winter. So the lakes never freeze. We never have ice on the water. And on the contrary, in winter, the temperatures are very often higher than in other areas of the north of Italy. And besides that, the humidity of the air is a blessing for ornamental plants. Yes, it rains sometimes, but rain is very important because rain is a blessing to have our gardens so lush and so rich. But the secret of our area is in fact the acidic soil. Acid soil is perfect for the growth of a very special vegetation that is made of palm trees, for example, that you can see in a distance here of this picture of the amazing Villa Taranto Gardens. But especially the acidic soil is good for the so-called typical flowers of Lake Maggiore, which are three: the camellias, the azaleas, and the rhododendrons, and also for a great number of other flowers like hydrangeas and gardenias. So it's a unique combination of climate and humidity and acidic soil that have made these plants naturalizing throughout about 200 years. Because in fact, the creation of gardens and parks started during the 19th century, so about 200 years ago, and continued in the early 20th century, when wealthy families began discovering Lake Maggiore, especially Lake Maggiore, to build, to have their villa for holidays, long periods of relax. And their houses, their mansions, were always surrounded by beautiful gardens. So these wealthy families began importing exotic plants and began naturalizing these plants. So these flowers are not original from here, but they've naturalized. They say that Lake Maggiore is the paradise, is the kingdom of camellias. Outside Japan, Lake Maggiore is the most important place where camellias grow. The period of the year that is the best to enjoy these flowers is spring. So let's say between mid-March and mid-May. But in any case, throughout the year, you will find flowers and colors that feature each different season. Because don't forget that camellias also bloom in autumn, for example. Winter camellias are a beauty in all our gardens. In the summer, we have other special flowers like hydrangeas that I mentioned earlier. And winter too has its colors and special vegetation. The second lake that features our region is called Lake Orta. Orta is the name of a small medieval town. I've referred in this slide to Lake Orta as a hidden gem, and it is. Lake Orta and Lake Maggiore are totally different. So Lake Orta is a must see, and travelers are always amazed by this lake, which is characterized by tiny villages of the Middle Ages, ancient stone houses with slate roofs. This is something that you don't find on Lake Maggiore, for example, but that you find on Lake Orta. Small churches and old convents everywhere because of a very particular history that influenced this small lake in the past. Watchtowers on tops of mild hills. The watchtowers were used to defend this lake from invasions. So this is the environment that surrounds the small Lake Orta, one of the smallest, but also in Italy, but also one of the most attractive lakes. If Lake Maggiore developed starting from 200 years ago, after the building of the strategic Simplon Road by Napoleon. Napoleon wanted to connect Milan to Paris, and that's why he developed a military road that still today goes along Lake Maggiore and goes to the top of the Alps. It was 1801 when Napoleon started the building of this road. Lake Orta has a totally different history because the roads around Lake Orta were already well known in the Middle Ages. Pilgrims and wealthy merchants traveled between the Alps and the sea, and they passed along Lake Orta, in fact. The two slides show you a view on the island of St. Julius, the only island in the center of this lake. And the other slide shows you a picture of the main square of Orta San Giulio with some of the colored houses of the old town. The third area we insist today is called the Ossola region at the foothills of the Alps. As Silvia said, we are very close to Monte Rosa. Monte Rosa Massif is the second highest mountain in Europe after Mont Blanc. So it's a very short distance from the peaks of the Alps, and the mountains are snow-capped all year, in fact. Old roads of commerce and smugglers. When we visit the Ossola, there are so many stories to talk about, and visitors are always enchanted by these stories of smuggling and commercing between the two states, Italy and Switzerland. So visiting the Ossola Valley means enjoying the beauty of the Alps and the tiny mountain dwellings, but also discovering, for example, stories of inventiveness and initiative aiming at improving conditions, life conditions that you can imagine in the mountains could be, especially in the past, very hard. In the center of the Ossola Valley, there's a small city called Domo d'Ossola, of which we see a picture here of the main square, while the waterfall that you see in the other picture is the waterfall of the Toce River, the major river that flows through the Ossola Valley. Okay, so let's start now after this introduction that hopefully has been interesting for you and useful to understand where we are. The sites we'll talk about this afternoon can be divided in 4 categories: mansions with garden and castles, parks and gardens, museums with a park or a garden, and the special natural reserves called Sacri Monti, the sacred mountains, which are UNESCO heritage sites. In the field of the mansions with garden and castles, dividing them in the 3 areas. On Lake Maggiore, we have the park of Rocca Borromea in Arona, the Borromeo Islands in Stresa. On the Lake Orta, we have the Villa Nigra in Miasino, and in the Ossola, we have the Visconti Castle of Bogogna. Arona is a town that you find in the very south of Lake Maggiore. It's a lively small town of about 15,000 inhabitants with a very interesting old center with medieval buildings. And on the top of a hill behind Arona and above Arona, we have an area, a green area, that is called Rocca Borromea, where we find the ruins, in fact, of a castle. This castle in the past was one of the key strategic control points of Lake Maggiore, together with another castle that you can see on the opposite side of the lake, that is called the Rocca di Angera. The Rocca di Angera is still there. It's a very well-preserved medieval fortress, while the Rocca di Arona was destroyed in the 1800s by Napoleon. So that's why today we only see the ruins of it. The fortress had been founded before the year 1000, And in 1439, the Visconti family, the Dukes of Milan, gave this castle to the Borromeo family. When you visit Lake Maggiore, you will hear about this family, the Borromeo family, a noble family that has existed for 700 years. The Borromeo family still today own the ruins of the Rocca Borromeo, and they also own the islands that we'll talk about later. In the Borromeo family, we can say that the most important member of this dynasty in the past is Carlo Borromeo, Charles Borromeo, who was born in this castle in the Rocca Borromeo in 1538 and who became a saint. He was canonized in the Catholic tradition. And he was also, during his life, a cardinal and a bishop of Milan. The area of the Rocca Borromeo is a public park, so everyone can access it. And as you can see, the beauty of this place not only stands in the location, in the ruins of the castle that surround the visitors, but also on the view that you have on the lake. What you see in this slide is Lake Maggiore in its southern point with the roofs of the houses of Arona. As for the services that you find in the park of the Rocca Borromeo, you will find a cafe and restaurant where you will have multilingual welcome. An event space, both outside and inside. It is possible to celebrate weddings, for example, in some areas of the park. The parking option is not far. The park can also be reached on foot directly from the center of Arona, and it's a place where educational visits and guided tours are possible. Well, if you have ever been on Lake Maggiore, or if you have ever sent your guests on Lake Maggiore, I'm sure that the first offer that you've given them has been a visit to Isola Bella, because for sure Isola Bella, the beautiful islands, is the highlight of a stay in our region. Isola Bella is a property of the same Borromeo family that I had just mentioned. In the 1620s, Count Vitaliano Borromeo began transforming a rock, a very simple rock in the middle of the lake, into a place of delights. It took, in fact, 400 years to complete this magnificent work that includes the palazzo, the palace, and its scenic gardens. The gardens are built on 10 terraces. In the palace, you find a lot of artworks, and all the rooms are perfectly furnished and ornate with artworks. And the tour of the garden is really amazing, because people can walk up to the top terrace to enjoy a view around the lake. And this is the view that you have as soon as you access the garden, when you finish the visit of the palace. And what you see in front of you is the so-called amphitheater, like a big shell decorated with statues and obelisks and fountains and so on, and white peacocks that populate the garden and sometimes display their feathers. The second island that is located in the so-called Borromeo Bay. If you remember, I showed you earlier a map of Lake Maggiore. So in the very center of the lake enlarges, and that's where the islands are located. The second island belonging to the Borromeo family is called Isola Madre, the Mother Island. It is the largest of the Borromean islands. And its garden, the garden that occupies the English-style botanical garden that occupies all the island, is can be considered as the oldest garden of Lake Maggiore. The first exotic plants of Lake Maggiore were imported by the Borromeo family and planted on Isola Madre. Isola Madre enjoys very special microclimatic conditions, even better than the rest of the lake. And still today, the Botanic Garden is a place where new plants are tested, and vegetation that is also imported today from Australia, from Africa, because due to the climate changes, the gardeners are now focusing on different kind of vegetation and experimenting, naturalizing new plants. Very famous is a very tall tree, the so-called Kashmir cypress, that was knocked down by a tornado 18 years ago, and then reborn and then restarted. So here is a view on this paradise island. The ferry you see, the boat you see, is one of the public ferries, one of the boats of the public service. These islands can be reached both by a public service and by private water taxis. And this is the south side of the island, the side of the island that faces the south, which enjoys better conditions compared to the other side that is more in the shade, but just as beautiful. On both the Borromeo Islands, you find a lot of services. The islands are opened usually between March and November. In fact, Lake Maggiore is seasonal, we can see, even if this project of villas and gardens is also aimed at prolonging the season, the tourist season, and trying to offer something different for other seasons that were usually considered with no tourists at all and no tourist offer. So guided tours are possible. People find cafe and restaurants and shops, and of course event spaces and so on. There is a third island not far from Isola Bella and Isola Madre that is called the Fisherman's Island, which is which complete the visit. Usually completes the visit to these islands. And now we move to Lake Orta, where we find the Villa Nigra. Nigra is the name of an architect who purchased this villa and lived in this villa between the late 19th and the early 20th century. But in fact, Villa Nigra was started in the 1500s. So this villa still shows three different sections, and you can still recognize the three different styles. This villa, as you can see, is also painted outside. It's a perfect example of a villa of Lake Orta. As I said earlier, Lake Orta has a different history than Lake Maggiore. So on Lake Orta, we find older villas than the ones of Lake Maggiore. As I said, this villa was started in the 16th century. Today, the Villa Nigra belongs to the municipality. So no one lives there. It's used, a part of it has the offices of the town hall, and other rooms are used for exhibitions, cultural meetings, concerts, and also can also be rented for meetings and weddings. Outside the villa, as you can see, is surrounded by a beautiful, lush garden. Here is a rhododendron. So this picture is must have been taken in between April and May. And very old camellias, among the oldest camellias of Lake Orta. And as you can see, the villa has a stone roof that is typical of Lake Orta. So just outside the villa in the park, there is a cafe and restaurant. The villa, as I said, is used as an event space. Parking is very easy, and visits can be organized after an agreement that you take with the municipality. Because, as I said, it's not private, but everything is managed. The villa the opening is managed by the town, the mayor of Miasino. That is the name of this village, one of the most charming medieval villages of Lake Orta. And later you will learn that a few steps from Villa Nigra, there is another hidden gem to discover. And we complete the section dedicated to castles and villas with gardens with the Visconti Castle of Bogogna. Bogogna is a very small medieval town, perfectly preserved at the beginning of the Ossola Valley. The castle was part of an important defensive system built to control and protect the so-called Lower Ossola region. It was then later expanded as a plan of strengthening the defensive network of the Duchy of Milan. Don't forget that Milan is very close to our region, and Milan was the capital of Duchy. And today Milan is located in a different region because Milan is in Lombardy while we are in Piedmont. But nevertheless, Milan is still today our city of reference because it's very, very close. And in the past, Milan was the capital, controlled all the region that we are talking about this afternoon. The castle was open to the public in 2001, and now it is divided in sections inside, housing some archaeological jewels, and then a section of scientific and environmental theme about the return of the wolf in the Alps, and also in the towers, which were the ancient prisons in the past. There's a reproduction of a medieval house and an exhibition about the machines designed by Leonardo da Vinci. Here is a picture so that you can see the structure of the castle. Parts of it are very well preserved. So it's a really, you plunge into the Middle Ages when you visit this castle. Guided tours with internal staff are possible because the castle is managed by a local association that offers the organization of events and educational visits. Each of these sites, of course, has their website in which you can find all other information. And now we turn the page and we talk about parks and gardens, which means that in the following sites, we will just, the visit is possible only in the parks and the gardens. These are not houses, these are not castles with parks, but just gardens. On Lake Maggiore, we have the park of Villa Pallavicino in Stresa, the Alpinia Botanical Garden in Stresa, the park of Villa Fedora in Baveno. In Verbania, we have three parks, the Botanical Gardens of Villa Taranto, the Park of Villa Maioni, and the Park of Villa Giulia. In the tiny village of Ogebbio, the Park of Villa Anelli, and in another small village, Cannero Riviera, the Citrus Park. While on Lake Orta, the gardens of Villa Bossi and the Park of Villa Motta in Orta San Giulio, the Lorella Garden in Ameno, and the Giardino dei Semplici in Miasino. You'll see later why we haven't translated this name. The Park of Villa Pallavicino is located in Stresa. Stresa is the most visited resort of all the area of the Distretto dei Laghi and of Lake Maggiore. The Park of Villa Pallavicino is located just outside the center of Stresa. The villa was a private residence belonging to the Genoese Pallavicino family in 1862, who enlarged the garden and the villa. But in 1956, the Pallavicino family introduced also some animals in their gardens, small animals like donkeys or ducks or llamas and other wildlife. So this garden, in fact, is also called a zoological garden. Since 2017, the Pallavicino Park has been one of the properties of the Borromeo family. So now today the Pallavicino Park is in the so-called Terre Borromeo circuit. It's a visit that we suggest to everybody, but especially to families with children who can find, who can enjoy, as I said, the presence of these animals. And they find also a playground, but also to lovers of botanics and especially of tall trees. And you can also find, it's also a place where some animals are rescued. Animals that would not live in the wildlife due to some issues that they may have had can be rescued here in this garden. Here is a bigger picture of the view that you have from the garden, so that you can also see something more of Lago Maggiore, surrounded by hills and mountains. In a distance on the left, you can see part of Isola Bella, the beautiful island that we talked about yesterday, earlier. And again, in the Parco Pallavicino, you find all services that can be important for your guests, including the accessibility with golf carts, so that even disabled are able to enjoy the garden. The Alpinia Botanical Garden is located above Stresa, on the slopes of the so-called Mottarone Mount. The garden was established in 1934. It was created by two local passionate people, passionate men from Stresa. And as the name says, Alpinia, it protects and displays especially alpine vegetation. You find a lot of flower beds. The collection consists of around 750 species, mostly from the alpine foothills, but also hosting some other local vegetation. For example, the rhododendron collection is very important. But we can add to the botanical importance and aspect of this garden the view that is breathtaking, as you can see when you climb up the tracks of Alpinia garden, you get to a point, to a viewpoint that is really breathtaking. From here, you can see part of the so-called Borromeo's Bay with Isola Madre, Isola Bella, and Isola Pescatori, the city of Verbania, and you can see the section of the lake that goes to the north and to the border with Switzerland. So a real inspiration for the soul, for sure. Multilingual welcome is possible at the Alpinia Botanical Garden, and guided tours and educational visits. A cafe and restaurant is open in the garden, and it's also a place for events. Baveno is the name of a resort, that is not far from Stresa. I mentioned it earlier, being on the so-called Borromeo's Bay. And the park of Villa Fedora is a public park. So this is another example, like the Rocca Borromeo Park, of a garden that is open to everybody with no entrance fee to be paid. It lays a few steps from the center of the town of Baveno, and it's a municipal park. The Villa Fedora was in the 19th century a residence of a musician and orchestra director. Today, it's the property of the Chamber of Commerce, so it has headquarters and offices inside. And the garden and the park is a lush English-style park with tall trees like oaks and other trees, conifers, and it's open to the public all year round. Especially in spring and summer, there are festivals and cultural events are organized in the park. And the other feature is that the park goes to the lake. So while you walk along these paths, you reach a small beach. So in the summer, it's also very cool with the shade of these tall trees, and you can also relax on the beach. I remind you that the villa is not open to the visits, but just the park is, and recently they have focused on total accessibility of this park, to be accessible even for disabled. Verbania is the name. I've already mentioned the city of Verbania being the largest city of Lake Maggiore, and the botanical gardens of Villa Taranto lay in this city. If you talk to a garden lover, and especially to a person who is specialized in botanics, Villa Taranto is a big name, because Villa Taranto is known everywhere in the world, being one of the most important botanical gardens. So the botanical importance of the gardens of Villa Taranto is recognized everywhere in the world. This was the creation of a Scottish man, Neil McEachern, who bought the villa in 1931 and began transforming and creating the pre-existing Italian-style garden into a park, and who especially began importing and naturalizing plants that very often had never been naturalized in Europe. So he imported plants from everywhere in the world and was able to have them growing in the gardens. The gardens of Villa Taranto have been open to the public since 1952. Captain Neil McEachern was still alive in 1952, so he himself began welcoming the first visitors. And when he died in 1964, the gardens began being managed by the foundation that was created after his death to continue with the work that he had started. The gardens are opened between March and early November. The villa is not open to the visitors because it hosts the offices of the so-called prefettura, public offices, and it's also residence for the prefetto. And it's a 50-acre park that can be visited and that offers a huge variety of flowers and plants throughout the seasons, the opening season of this garden. Very special is the blooming of the tulips in early spring and the blooming of the dahlias, the exhibit of dahlias between July and October. There's a cafe and restaurant both at the entrance and in the center of the garden, and visits, of course, are possible and can be organized. And it is also possible to visit the garden for disabled because they are organized for that. The Park of Villa Maioni is a public park. The villa is currently the municipal library of the city of Verbania. It was built in 1925, so it is an example of those villas that were being built in that period between the second half of the 19th and the early 1900s. The park is a 30,000 square meter park, and since 2007 it has housed a catalog. It is in fact considered a catalog field of 57 cultivated variety of camellias. The collection is called today the Camellia Library. It was created by the Italian Association of Camellias, the Camellia Italian Camellia Association, as if it was a library. So it would like to display all possible specimens of camellias. The Park of Villa Maioni is also used for cultural events and also civil weddings that can be celebrated on the terrace of the villa. Here you see an example of some of these camellia plants that dot the park, and with the help of the labels and a big map at the entrance of the park, the visitors can learn a lot about these beautiful flowers. I don't know if you know that tea is made with the leaves of a camellia. Camellia sinensis is a variety of camellia, and the leaves of Camellia sinensis can be dried and are used to make tea. The tea we drink everywhere in the world is made with the leaves of a camellia. Another public park is the Park of Villa Giulia, always in Verbania. Villa Giulia, the name was the name of the wife of the first owner of this villa, Giuseppe Branca, who had inherited it by his father, Bernardino Branca. Bernardino Branca is known to have invented in 1845 one of the most famous Italian liqueurs, the Fernet Branca, a alcohol liquor made with the bitter herbs. Later, the Branca family decided to buy a different villa on Lake Maggiore that, by the way, they still own today, and they gave Villa Giulia to the municipality. So today, Villa Giulia belongs to the municipality of Verbania, and the garden is open to the visitors. It's a public garden with a specimen of palm trees and banana leaves and very tall tree like cork oak in the center. And the facade of the villa is very attractive, as you can see. And inside the villa can be used for events and is often used for public events, but can also be rented for private events. In the center of the garden, in the building that used to be the chalet of the villa, is now a cafe and small restaurant. We have mentioned earlier the camellias, and we continue mentioning the camellias. As you can see, camellias are very important for our region. And the park of Villa Anelli in the small village of Oggebbio is one of the most important, hosts one of the most important collections of camellias in Europe. In fact, in 2010, the garden was named Camellia Garden of Excellence by the International Camellia Society. The collection includes 500 plants, 318 Japonica cultivars that bloom in spring, 40 Sasanqua camellias that bloom in winter. The villa was built in 1872, but it's only in the second half of the 1950s that an industrialist from Milan began planting, who was in love with camellias, began planting different specimens of camellias, and he was in fact the founder of the Italian Camellia Society that still exists today. And the owner, this is a private property today, the owner of Villanelli and of the garden of Villanelli is today the president of the Italian Camellia Society. So I would say that the best season to visit this garden is early spring, when camellias start blooming, or autumn for the blooming of winter camellias. But in the summer, when it's very hot all around and busy with tourists everywhere, this garden is a silent place, a very quiet place, and a real inspiration for your soul. It is also possible to organize wine tastings and tea tastings, as I said earlier, because they also cultivate the Camellia sinensis, so you can enjoy some tea and taste some of the wines that are produced somewhere else by the owners of this villa. So it's, they said, they offer guided tours with internal staff, especially if you have guests that are really interested in camellias and in the botanical aspect of the garden, not only enjoy the beauty of the flowers, but really want to know more about the botanical subject. It is possible to organize tours with the owner himself, who, as I said, is the president of the Italian Camellia Society. Not far from Villa Anelli, the tiny village of Cannero hosts the so-called citrus park, the Giardino degli Agrumi in Italian. Cannero Riviera is a unique place in Piedmont for the presence of an incredible varieties of citruses, not only of citruses, but of Mediterranean vegetation, because Cannero is located in a bay facing the south and protected on the back by the mountains, so that it enjoys very, very special microclimatic conditions. The citrus park was born from the cooperation between the municipality of Cannero and the University of Torino, aimed at recovering the agricultural tradition of this small piece of land located in the north of Lake Maggiore. So when in Cannero there are a lot of private gardens full of these citrus plants, lemon trees, orange trees, lime trees, kumquats, grapefruits, and so on. But today people are also able to walk freely on this multi-level garden and know something more about the world of citruses. Every year in early March, citruses are celebrated in a festival, which is actually unique. And here is a picture of the tiny village of Cannero, so that you can have an idea of the amazing vegetation with palm trees everywhere. And in the summer, you see bougainvilleas everywhere that are really contrasting with the mountain setting all around. The citrus park is open all year. On the Lake of Orta, the gardens of Villa Bossi is a public garden today. Villa Bossi is the town hall today of the town of Orta San Giulio, and its garden is open all year, being a public garden. From there you can enjoy an amazing view on the island of San Giulio that you see in this slide. And in this slide you see the statue of a painter. It's in fact the self-portrait of a German actor and film director Karl-Heinz Schroth, who stated, "Orta is for me the most beautiful place in the world," and decided to present the town with this statue to be positioned in the garden. Here is a view on the building. That is the town hall. As I said, civil weddings can be celebrated here, both outside in the garden or inside. And very often, Orta San Giulio is a very, very romantic location, and almost every day there's a wedding being celebrated here.
Right. You want to get asking.
Not far from the town hall, the park of Villa Motta, which is a private park, just like Villanelli before, for example. So a family, the Motta family, who still lives in this house that was built in the early 1900s, and the house is not open to the visitors because this family live in the house, but the garden is. You can arrange a visit to this amazing garden. By the way, as well as Villanelli, this garden has been recognized since 2020 by the International Camellia Society as an International Camellia Garden of Excellence, and the owner is the chairman of the president of the International Camellia Society. So collections of groves of camellias, but not only camellias, but also smanthus, rhododendrons, conifers, and also rhododendrons, azaleas, hydrangeas, and roses. So it's a full immersion in the beauty of our flowers. And the garden develops on the back of the villa. So you have to climb up to the top from where you have a view on the stunning Lake Orta. So guided tours are possible with the owners or also with the local guides. And always on Lake Orta, but now this time on the hills of Lake Orta, so not in the town of Orta itself, but in a small village called Ameno, we find Lorella Garden, which is one of the highlights of these gardens. In fact, we are on the eastern shore of Lake Orta. Casa Lorella, Lorella House, dates back to the early 17th century and has belonged to the Lorella family since then. So still today, the descendants of the owners of this house still own this house and this garden. The house is surrounded by a garden of about 2.5 hectares, which has been meticulously cared for by the owners over the years to become the English-style landscape garden that can be admired today, set in a splendid panoramic position. This garden can be visited in all seasons. And this is, for example, a winter view of the garden. No, it's not a winter view, sorry, I'm mistaken, because I see the flowers in front here, which are summer flowers. But anyway, we don't see the camellias and rhododendrons that are typical of spring. So anyway, I want to focus on the view that you have from the slopes of this garden, the view on the lake, on the island. You see the tiny island of St. Julius here in the center of the lake. And the owner of this garden is very happy to welcome the visitors and to show them around. And in this way, we can really appreciate the big efforts that the owners of these properties have to do today to maintain what they have inherited from their ancestors. So they have a very, very big responsibility in these terms. Miasino, if you remember, is the small town that we mentioned earlier when we were talking about the Villa Nigra. And I told you that a few steps from the Villa Nigra, we find another garden that is the so-called Giardino dei Semplici. We haven't translated the name of this garden because these are words that go together, that form an expression. Semplici is an old word for the medicinal plants and the simple healing, curative elements that they contain. So the Giardino dei Semplici can be defined as a pharmaceutical garden, a garden of pharmaceutical plants, of healing plants. We can say that all gardens started in this way, because the first concept of garden was the concept of a garden for useful plants. And especially these gardens were located in convents and in monasteries. Healing plants, curative plants, or spices and plants used in the kitchen, like rosemary, sage, and thyme, and pepper, and variety of medicinal plants. The Giardino dei Semplici of Miasino is considered the smallest botanical garden in Europe. Well, maybe this is not exactly true, but for sure it is one of the smallest, and it's a small gem. A visit is really, really interesting. The visit can be agreed with the association that is in charge of the maintenance, because the area, the garden, belongs to the town of Miasino. who has made an agreement with a local association for the maintenance of this small garden. And with the view on the slide of the Giardino dei Semplici, we are now having a break, meaning that if you have any questions before continuing, this is now the time to ask your questions if you have any queries about the properties, the sites that we talked about before continuing with the other sites. So I interrupt a little bit to let you think about your questions, and then I'm here.
Thank you, Daniela, for your presentation. We have one question in the chat that is a question made by Hiram. And the question is, what is the maximum temperature which drops in winter? Does it go to minus? I think it's at the first part of the...
Yeah, when I was introducing the region, Yes, sometimes we have frost, but very little frost and for very few days. As I said, the lakes never freeze. This is something that American tourists above all ask, because in the States they have these big lakes that freeze during winter. Our lakes don't freeze. So sometimes the temperature goes below zero, but for a very few days, so that this frost is not enough to kill the plants. We have snow sometimes, but snow melts very quickly.
Okay. Silvia, do you want to add something maybe about also about the hotel, if they are open also during the winter or not? Maybe it can be a good suggestion for our colleagues.
So as I said before, our area has always been known as a seasonal area. I mean, the season has usually covered the months between March and early November, late October, early November. But since tourism is changing and the trends are changing, and everything is developing and more people travel also in autumn and winter, this kind of projects, so projects like this, are aimed at trying to prolong the season. So some hotels keep open, a few hotels keep open during the winter, and our goal and our hope is that little by little, more hotels will be tempted to keep open also in the winter. But basically, usually the season goes between March and early November.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. When will Villa San Remigo be open for the public?
I don't have any answer for that. The Villa San Remigio belongs to the region, and there are, after a huge thunderstorm, a huge tornado, like 10 years, 15 years ago. I don't remember, Silvia, exactly the year.
I don't remember, me too, but
anyway, the garden was almost completely destroyed. The garden of Villa San Remigio is next to Villa Taranto, but what is the difference? Villa Taranto has a private management, so that they were able to start the works immediately, and Villa Taranto was reopened a few months after the tornado, while Villa San Remigio being a public property, a state property, the bureaucracy is slower, and in the meantime, the garden has not been entertained. So that's what I can tell you. For the moment, there are no rumors of a reopening, unfortunately.
Thank you. If there are any questions, you can use the chat.
Hi, Daniela. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. From the beginning, I'm listening your conversation that explaining about the Lake Maggiore side venues. Such a beautiful venue I saw on on the Zoom call. I already visit lakeside, Lake San Giuliano, Lake Maggiore, and I did some Indian destination wedding too there. Such a beautiful lake we have in Italy. So my question is that what is the good period to do a wedding in Lake Maggiore side?
So spring is usually considered the best time of the year, especially if you like flowers, because between mid-March and mid-May, so let's say April, May would be the best for all the bloomings, because you see flowers anywhere around us, everywhere. You don't have to go and visit a garden. It's a garden everywhere you look around. September is also a very good month because usually September has good climate, a good weather and good temperature. September is usually drier than other months and of course cooler than the summer, and October too. October, if the weather is nice, October is a very, very good month to visit Lake Maggiore. The colors begin, the fall colors, the autumn colors usually begin. There are flowers that are not maybe so imposing as the spring flowers, but it can be beautiful. Then I'm not a fortune teller. I can't promise about the good weather, but now it's a challenge any time of the year. So yeah, that's a challenge.
So I'm completely agree.
Usually the weather is very nice here. Yeah.
I'm completely agree about the weather, because I remember when I organized the Indian wedding at Lake San Giuliano. So it was the month of June, and unfortunately in the evening time there was raining. So for a natural call we can't,
Now
say
you can.
maybe no, we are not sure, because that's a natural call. But thank you so much for the information.
Thank
and
you.
loving out joining this Zoom call. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you for participating.
Thank you. Daniela, there is also Eleonora that is asking a similar question to Summer. And she is adding if there is some specific garden to focus only in a very specific month, or all are fine in the range you has just said before about the weather, because she was asking about the months March, November to enjoy at the best all the gardens.
Well, as I said, March is good for the Villa Anelli, for the blooming of camellias, because Villa Anelli has other flowers, but I would say that the camellias of Villa Anelli are the highlight. So Villa Anelli is a garden for camellias, and as a consequence, March and early April is the best for camellias, because May is good for other flowers like azaleas and rhododendrons, but camellias have gone. So if this was the question, if I've understood the question well. And then November is also good for camellias, because November is the time when winter camellias begin blooming. So Villanelli, again, for example, is a garden that is full of camellias, and as a consequence gives its best in the time when camellias are blooming. Giardino Lorella, as I said, is a garden that can be visited in all seasons, because it has a variety of flowers that allow the visit in all seasons. The gardens of Villa Taranto too are so rich in botanical species that can be visited in all seasons, but the gardens of Villa Taranto close in early November.
Okay, thank you.
As well as the islands, as well as the Borromeo Islands.
Okay, thank you. There are any questions? Sorry. The moment, no. So I think we can continue with the presentation.
I would just to add something
Yes,
that
yes, Silvia, please.
sorry. that I didn't say before. In realizing these projects, so gardens with these different actions and also with these activities promoting our garden tourism offer also to you, to buyers, international buyers, we want also to underline the kind of visitors we want to promote with this project visiting our destination. So we think that garden tourism nowadays is aimed at a quality visitor with a good level of culture, which allows for actual enrichment visits in a context of a leisure stay, of a holiday. So tourists who are prepared and ready to appreciate the excellence of the place of a vacation, they want to enter in contact with the local culture and with a strong propensity also for green and sustainability, which are the most contemporary tourist trends nowadays in the post-pandemic era too. And so we think that our villas and gardens, they are always appreciated by organized tourism, so by big groups, which are one of our target markets. They have been that for many decades, and they are still today. But they are also villas and gardens, so they offer is also appreciated by individuals, by couples, for example, on a romantic getaway, or adult families, as well as small groups ready to discover our territory and our destinations, even for the second time, but with different and more sensitive eyes. So we also want to focus your attention to that concept, which is one of the purpose of our project too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Silvia. All right, so we can continue with the last two sections of our webinars. The two topics of our webinar, which are the museums with park or gardens. In Lake Maggiore, we have the so-called Museo Meina in the park of Villa Faraggiana in the town of Meina. And in the Ossola, the so-called Perfume House, Feminis Farina Perfume House in the town of Santa Maria Maggiore. So this will be a caster topic, because we just have two locations. Meina is a small town not far from Arona. If you remember, we started with the Rocca Borromeo of Arona in the south of Lake Maggiore. Meina is very close to Arona, always on the lake. And there we find a museum that is called the Museo Meina, Meina Museum from the town of Meina, in the park of a villa, in the park of Villa Faraggiana. It's located in the hillside garden, in the chalet, you know, the chalet, so like alpine building. The style of the villas of Lake Maggiore is not uniform. Some villas have a neoclassical style. Some other villas have eclectic style, so it's a combination of different styles, and some others have alpine style, and they have this chalet because those families also wanted to imitate the atmosphere of the Swiss mountains that were so popular in the 19th century.
Hello.
Anyway, in the garden of in the park of Villa Faraggiana, you find this chalet in which a collection museum has been recently installed. And it's a visit that is good for the whole family. So this is an experience that we suggest to families with children, for example. The visit begins in the old greenhouses or nurseries dating back to the 19th century, and then continues with an interactive experience of a traveler which explains how wealthy people traveled in the past, and so on, and other experiences. So guided tours are organized with internal staff. The management of this museum is taken care by an association, by a local association, and events can be organized inside together with educational visits. But this is probably something that you will be curious about because it's something different. It's a different subject from the other sites that we are talking about. The name of the town is Santa Maria Maggiore, but it has nothing to do with Lake Maggiore. We are in fact in the mountains. We are in the Ossola Valley, and especially in a side valley called Vigezzo Valley. Vigezzo Valley is known to be the Chimney Sweeps Valley because starting from the 1700s, families were so poor that they often sold their children to be employed as chimney sweeps. It sounds cruel, but you have to imagine that life conditions were so bad that sometimes families were not sure to have enough food to feed all the children. And so giving away one of their sons was a way of hoping to save their lives, in fact. So when you visit the town of Santa Maria Maggiore, you can visit a museum, a chimney sweep museum, and the museum that is unique in the world. So that's why Santa Maria Maggiore is famous for. It's famous for being the chimney sweeps museum, but also more recently, another museum has been opened, which is dedicated to perfume. Why? Because the story says that a man who was original from this town and who had emigrated in Germany, and especially in the city of Köln, invented a potion that was first used as a medicine and then exported to France and became a perfume known as Eau de Cologne, the water of Köln. Eau de Cologne is a perfume that is famous worldwide, and apparently it was invented by a local man of this small town. So that's why some years ago they decided to open a museum where you can experience perfumes, where you can learn about how perfumes are made, and it's a journey among scents and aromas and suggestions. And on the back of the garden, on the back of the museum, you find a tiny garden, an oasis of peace, with a glass house where events, small events can be organized, or small workshops, for example, inspired by the world of perfume. Santa Maria Maggiore is a lovely town to visit, and it's very lively, especially in the summer. It is not very high in altitude, but it is surrounded by the mountains, and it's a place where a lot of people from Milan own their holiday home. So it gets very, very popular in the summer, especially at the weekend. And but also foreign visitors are attracted there, and it's usually a visit that is enjoyable by everyone. It's enjoyed by everyone. Everybody likes it. And now we are at the last but not least, as they say in English, because we are now talking about the Sacri Monti, the sacred mountains. Also, in this case, we have decided not to translate because Sacro Monte is something that is difficult to translate. We have 3 Sacramonti, so 1 in each of our territory. In Lake Maggiore, we have the Sacromonte della Trinità in Giffa, a small town on Lake Maggiore. In Lake Orta, we have the Sacromonte of Orta, and in Ossola, we have the Sacromonte Calvario of Domo d'Ossola. All the Sacramonti are special natural reserves, so they are protected, like a protected area. What is a Sacromonte? What is a sacred mountain or holy mountain? In Italy, the Sacramonti are 9, and they are all located in the north of Italy, between Milan and the Alps. That's the area where we find the 9 Sacramonti. 7 are in Piedmont and 2 are in Lombardy. We can define them as devotional complexes of chapels, groups of chapels. When I say chapels, I mean the buildings that you see here in these pictures that are, as you can see, they can be very different buildings. They are not uniform in their architecture. And the Sacramonti were erected between the end of the 15th and the beginning of the 19th century. They are dedicated to different aspects of the Christian faith. Most of the 9 Sacramonti are dedicated to the Passion of Jesus Christ, so like the Stations of the Cross. A few of them are dedicated to the Virgin. Only one is dedicated to one saint, and Saint Francis of Assisi. The Sacramonti are a wonderful example of integration between architecture and the surrounding landscape. And the landscape that surrounds the Sacramonti is always the same: hills, forests, and lakes. And this is what UNESCO said. So the UN has decided to register the Sacramonti in the World Heritage List in 2003 for this reason, and also because they host an important artistic heritage of wall paintings and statues. Because inside the chapels of the Sacramonti, you see a display of clay statues and frescoes on the walls, and with the help of these statues and frescoes, simple people of the past were able to learn a story. We call it visual teaching. And even today, we know how important visual teaching is. We learn much more through images, for example, in this video today, and with the help of the slides, than with the books that we read. The first Sacromonte I want to tell you about is the one located in Giffa on Lake Maggiore. It's dedicated to the Trinity. It overlooks one of the most significant sites of Lake Maggiore. It is the smallest of the Sacramonti. It is made only of 3 chapels, 1 shrine and one church, 1 Via Crucis, 1 Stations of the Cross, and 1 church. It was built between the end of the 16th and the beginning of the 1600s, the 17th century, and it was built in a place that was already considered as miraculous, and that's why they developed it into a Sacromonte. You don't have to think that the visit to a Sacromonte is only for religious people, because, as I usually say, Sacramonti are mystic. They touch every single strength of your body and of your soul. You don't have to be a Christian or a Catholic to enjoy a Sacromonte, and if you are of another religion, of a different religion, you will not be disturbed, because the Sacramonti are for everyone. The UNESCO definition is really mirrors what a Sacromonte is. Don't forget, it's a mystic experience. Yet the Sacromonte of Giffa can be accessible for almost everyone. You find a cafe inside. Events are often organized, above all in the summer, when people can stay outside. And of course, educational visits and guided tours are possible. On Lake Orta, the Sacromonte is dedicated to Saint Francis of Assisi. The building of the Sacromonte of Orta started in 1583, 1590, and the last chapel was started in the early 1700s, in the late 1700s. So it took 200 years to build and to ornate 20 chapels, because the Sacromonte of Orta is made of 20 chapels. The view is the other highlight of the Sacromonte of Orta, because this is the breathtaking view that you have from the top of the hill, a view on the Lake of Orta and of the island of Saint Giulio, which is another place for the soul, for the nourishing of your soul. And I've been guiding thousands of people in my years of guiding, and I can tell you that the Sacromonte is very often the place where my guests are sometimes moved to tears, really, because it's very, very touching experience. And it is something unique. When foreigners come to Italy, they visit a huge number of churches, convents, basilicas, cathedrals, and so on. But when they come to the Sacromonte, they find something completely different. As well as in the other Sacromonte, of course, guided tours are possible, educational visits, and there's a cafe and restaurant, very high quality restaurant in this Sacromonte. The last Sacromonte, the Sacromonte of Domodossola, which is dedicated to the Passion of Jesus. The construction started in 1656. The inspiration of the Sacromonte very often started in the Franciscan order, because the Franciscan friars have always been very good in communicating. Still today, I don't know if you are familiar with the Franciscan orders, but they always been very communicative. So the chapels of the Sacromonte were used to communicate, as I said, to share information, so on. And again, this is what a Sacromonte looks like, a very peaceful, very quiet place, inspiring place, where you can see these buildings and also go inside and find this display of clay statues. And very often, when you go inside, it looks as if you are looking at a performance, because these statues look like real actors making a performance. And then only at a second sight, you realize that those are not human figures. They look like human figures, but they're not. The Sacromonte of Domodossola is not easy to reach on foot. I would say that the Sacromonte of Orta is the one that you reach more easily, because it is also accessible by groups, thanks to a shuttle train on wheels that make a connection between the town of Orta and the bus parking to the top, while the Sacromonte of Giffa and the Sacromonte of Domodossola are not as easy to be reached by groups traveling by coach. But if you have guests traveling by car, are accessible and easy to reach. So I've, as Silvia said, all these sites, all these locations are displayed in the new brochure published by the Distretto dei Laghi, which can also be read online as an ebook. And I really thank you for attending the webinar. And of course, again, as before, I'm open to your questions.
Oh, thank you, Daniela. So if you have any question, this is the moment just to ask all the curiosity that you have and just to know something else about these really beautiful places.
Is there any place described by Daniela that you prefer the most and you are really, you have a strong desire to visit in particular?
I will choose Sacromonte because I like the way the place was described, that the place is mystic and is touching everyone. So it made me curious to go there and to feel the vibe of this place. So
Yes.
that will be my favorite.
Yeah.
I'm Roxana from Copenhagen.
Hello, Roxana.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you would love the Sacrimonti, especially if you come from Copenhagen, where it's all flat. And
Exactly,
I think also because I've never been there, but a lot of Danish people come here and enjoy the up and down of our hills. They really like it. They really.
And they will love also to see all these flowers, especially the camellias. You know, this is a unique flower. I never knew it comes from Piedmont. So it's another thing.
It doesn't come from Piedmont, it comes from Asia, but it has naturalized here and now.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, that was very beautiful. Thank you for a nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxana. Thank you.
Roxana. Also, Benedict said the Sacromonte sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, it's true. It's a mix of nature, of faith, or spiritualism, and history, art. So it's something quite unique in Italy, unique in Piedmont and Lombardy. And you have this mix, which is fascinating because you are totally immersed in a world which is quite apart the rest of the world. So you feel yourself quite alone or isolated once you are in a Sacromonte, because it's a real spiritual place. So it's also a place where you can reflect and meditate, also by observing the beautiful panoramic view you have just in front of you, both on Lake Maggiore for the sacred Mount of Orta, of Gifa, sorry, and on Lake Orta for the sacred Mount of Orta, and also in Domodossola for the sacred Mount in Domodossola. There you don't have the lake, but you have a beautiful view of the Ossola Valley with all the Alps around. And so it's a place where you feel alone with yourself. But nowadays, probably we have this need to be quite alone and not connected, and that's the perfect place where to enjoy this moment. It's always a soul garden, so it's always a place. They all of them, and sacred mounts probably in particular, they places where this meaning realizes in a very effective way. So it's a gift that's you can make for you, for yourself, for your mind, body, and soul. So it's true.
Okay, Charlotte is writing, the private gardens and Sacromonte are perfect to us, my type of groups, are small and exclusive with no public around, which is important to us. We meditate every day and and do sound bowls, which is the silence needed to connect in words.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
that's true, Charlotte.
Mm.
Exactly what I said.
Yeah. Suzanne writes, you can feel how peaceful the Sacromonte are, even from the pictures. They must really interesting.
Yeah, they are.
We
Yeah,
trust.
as I said, I guide the people that have traveled all around the world, but when they come to the Sacromonte, they just say, "Wow, we've never seen anything like this." And then, as I said, you visit a lot of churches and cathedrals. At the beginning, maybe they think, "Oh no, we are going to visit another church," but it's not a church. And really beautiful. Yeah.
And in the Sacromonte area, for example, in Orta for the Sacred Mount of Orta, and in Giffa for the Sacred Mount of Giffa, there are restaurants where you can stop and for your lunch break, and they offer a typical cuisine, and also these locations, they are very high quality in terms of design. One it's more rustic, let's say. The other it's more easy chic. So different kind of designs, of interior designs, and both they offer a very good quality, always connected to the local resources and local recipes. So there are also these opportunities for food and for enjoying our local food and wine once there too.
Thank you, Silvia. Carla is writing, the palaces together with the gardens overlooking the lake are among the most spectacular in Europe. Can you tell me if all the visits can be privatized? Sorry. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm reading. Okay, the palaces together with the gardens. Oh, okay. I think you are talking about the islands, the Borromeo Islands, maybe the palaces together with the gardens overlooking the lake. Yeah. Yes. Visits can be. Yeah, you can have a private experience. The islands can be visited privately. So after the regular opening time, the islands can be visited with an exclusive visit with no other visitors around. Yeah, at a different price, of course. But this is possible. People can have an aperitivo in the gardens, for example, with no other visitors around. Real exclusive opening.
You. There are any questions? Silvia, if you want to add something, we are here. Yes, I forgot the name of the island. Thanks. So Daniela, I think she was talking about
the Borromeo Islands, Isola Bella and Isola Madre. Yeah, they can be. Yes, I confirm that they can be rented as exclusive location for also for exclusive parties. Last year, for example, Isola Madre was closed for one day, completely closed to visitors because there was a private event there. Isola Bella was used last year for the G7 event. So also for these official institutional events, yeah.
And in general, a lot of villas and gardens that were described by Daniela, they are the smaller ones. They are open just for you. So when you reserve a visit and you are accompanied by the owner or the expert, the botanical expert, you are quite alone. So they just open their door for you when you reserve a visit with your group, with your small groups, or for your individuals, because they are private properties, and so they they open the doors just for the private visit, which had been reserved in advance, and your group or your individual customers, they are conducted, they are led by the owner and or the local expert, it depends, during this visit, which can be considered as personalized and exclusive just for you.
Any other question?
Other places that you will keep in your heart, just having had a look at the pictures in the slides of Daniela. So the Borromeo Islands, the Botanical Gardens of Villa Taranto, probably they are the most known names and the most famous ones, but apart from the sacred mounds, there are others. There are other places that you think you will consider for your holiday packages.
Silvia, sorry, Carla comments that's a super bonus. Thank you very much for the information.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you. Thank you too.
Cheers. Vince is writing, I understood that you can even stay overnight on Isola Bella.
Yes, you can, it's true. Not inside the palace, but the Borromeo family have recently renovated some of the old houses of the island, and visitors can stay there and sleep and live a full experience on the island. Yes, it's true.
The fishermen's houses.
I have a question. Should I go? Yeah. So sorry, guys. Actually, I would like to know about the Isola Bella. Is it possible to organize a wedding or corporate event or a kind of the Indian Bollywood movie?
We don't know. You have to ask directly to the property, to Terre Borromeo, because it's a private property. So all these kind of decisions, they have been, they had to be
Agreed.
analyzed very well, and all the management they have to report to the property. So it's quite complex. Let's say we cannot give you now an answer, so you have to ask them directly.
At the moment, we can leave the question. Still don't know the updates. And another thing, please. Is there a venue in Lake Maggiore side where the number of the guests is about like 200, more up to 200? Can we do weddings there?
There are places, yes, because it's also in the past there were Indian weddings on Lake Maggiore. There are the grand hotels of Stresa and Baveno. Not every hotel, but there are some grand hotels which normally host your kind of weddings. They are very rich and very long, and with a very complex organization. Yes, there are.
Okay, because I saw in the conversation that Daniela was explaining that Lake Maggiore is not so far from Malpensa Airport, right? It's about
just 30 minutes.
30
Yeah.
minutes, which is a good sense, because when the international client, they're flying from all over the world, and they have an international airport. So the Milan Malpensa is one of the like international airport we have in Italy. So from Malpensa to go to the Lake Maggiore, it's about 30 minutes, which is a good sense. I really like to bring some good projects about the weddings or events or the Bollywood movies on the lake side of Lake Maggiore.
Good.
Yes, we will see. Yeah.
We
Just
don't
keep
know
in
about
touch.
tomorrow.
Let us know.
Yeah.
Thank you,
so
Samer.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are taking note.
And just to answer the question that can we stay overnight on Isola Bella, as Daniela told you, so there are these fishermen's apartments, property of Terre Borromeo, so of the Borromeo family. And also on Isola Bella, on both Isola Bella and Isola dei Pescatori, the third island we have in the Borromeo Gulf, the Fisherman's Island, which is like a picturesque hamlet in the middle of this bay, and it's under the municipality, the public administration of Stresa, of the town Stresa. So on these two islands, Bella and Pescatori, there are many hotels. There are also some bed and breakfasts and flats, holiday flats, where you can organize an overnight stay. So there are more possibilities of accommodation on these two islands. Only Isola Madre, Island Madre, doesn't give this opportunity because it's completely covered by the park with the villa, with the Renaissance Palace in the middle, so there is no village around.
Sorry. Rita is writing, thank you very much for your super presentation. It has been really an honor to know more about some places, sites which I have never heard. A new point of view with gardens, castles and villas to know and to offer to our guests new spots and cities with lots of possibilities. They are really hidden treasure. It is a perfect destination for our individual clients. Grazie mille a voi.
Thank you, Rita. Grazie mille.
And Charlotte is writing, can you write the island down with accommodation so I can spell correctly? I think
Of course.
the name of the island, yeah.
Isola dei Pescatori. And Isola Bella.
Thank you. That's right.
Probably there is another question by Charlotte. Will we covering accommodation this afternoon?
Yes,
For the
the same,
For the groups to stay. Okay.
the same question. Yeah,
Same, yeah. Yes, from the same person. Okay. Ines, can we have a list of venues in Lake Maggiore and Orta for big weddings? Please refer to summer question also.
Yes. First of all, on our website, distrettolaghi.it, there is an ebook section. So when you open the website on the homepage, you will find some titles just at the top of the page. And one of these sections is ebook. If you click on ebook, you will find all our guides and brochures and maps. One of these guides is Mice and Wedding. It's a brochure we have realized, we realized 2 years ago when we developed another project, which was Slow Bees. So it was a project in promoting mice and wedding, the mice and wedding offer in our destination, in our territory. And in this brochure, you will find the complete list, descriptions and contacts of all the wedding locations on our lakes and in the Alps, so covering the whole territory. So you will find hotels, you will find villas, and also the services they can give you. So that's a very good guide from where to start. Then if you have any other questions, you can write and we will be very pleased to answer. But please, first of all, have a look at this guide. So I can write down the name of the website that you can find also on my slides. That's www.distrettolaghi.it. Our portal has 4 versions, Italian, English, German, and French. and you will find this section very easily. So just click on ebook and you will find this guide, which is Mice and Wedding, Lakes and Mounds, Land of Events.
Okay. Thank you. Eleonora, right. Can we have via email the presentation you shared during the webinar? Of course, we will send you an email with the recording of this webinar and with the presentation of Silvia and Daniela. So you will receive everything by mail, right, Silvia? Yes?
Yes, that's true.
You will have a copy by email. Suzanne want to thank you, Silvia and Daniela, and Viral Passport, thank you, for a really interesting presentation. The Sacro Monte was new to me, so I'm looking forward to investigating them more.
Perfect.
Yeah, great.
Perfect. That's the interest we want to create with these webinars in all of you. So that's a pleasure to read that from you. Thank you.
Okay, now let me see.
That's a great opportunity for a new collaboration. I'm feeling really so excited.
Thank you,
And thanks to everyone.
Charlotte say it worked, we are all enamored.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are any questions, thank you very much from Iram.
Thank you, Iram.
Thank you, Iram.
I can see a lot of people that are really enthusiastic about the presentation and the place.
Good, I'm happy to hear that.
Wonderful insight. Thank you so much. Grazie a tutti. Benedict, Iram, it was such a wonderful and informative webinar. Malian, thank you. Oh, that's good. So you will receive the presentation by email and also, as I said, the recording of the webinar by Viral Passport. And Silvia, if you want to add something, let us know. We are here to know much more about that place.
Anything else? We just, as I told you before, at the beginning of this webinar, we remain at your complete disposal because I represent the tourism board and our activities. They are information and promotion in favor of this territory. So it's our pleasure and duty to answer all your questions as much as possible, of course. And we have a lot of materials. We have a lot of contacts. We have a lot of guides and a lot of information to share with you. So I hope that's it's a starting point. I hope that this webinar could create more interest in all of you, and I suggest to visit our website first of all. I hope we can meet with all of you again very soon. And what else? Just write us the contacts. You will find all our contacts, email, telephone, socials on my slides. And so we are here just for you. And I thank you again for your future work in supporting our destinations with your markets. And nothing else. Thank you so much again. Thank you, Viral Passport. Thank you, Marcella, Stefano, and thank you, Daniela, our precious local guide. I hope you all have the chance to meet her and to have a guided tour with her and with her colleagues belonging to this association Pronto Guide in the future in our destination. And we hope to have all of you as our guests very soon. Thank you.
Thank you
so much,
for
everyone.
attending, and thank you for your enthusiasm. I'm happy that I
That's
could
amazing.
share with you the beauty of the place where we live. See you.
God bless you all. Thank you so much.
See you in the future.
Thank you to you again. Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you, and see you on the 13th of March for next stage. A lot of thanks for you, Silvia and Daniela.
Ok, thank
Grazie,
you.
grazie Marcella.
Arrivederci.
So, bye.
Ciao a
Bye bye.
tutti, buona serata a tutti. Ciao ciao.
Buona
Buona
serata.
serata. Bye bye.
Arrivederci. Bye bye.
Arrivederci.
Bye.